Here's the fastball velocity that Spencer Strider needs to have to be successful. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Thursday, May 22nd. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. A couple different ways to support everything that we're doing. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, I think lets you do that. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop episodes. Leaving comments down below always helps the engagement and shares it with more people. YouTube's weird like that. And then subscriptions, free or paid, over at bravestoday.com. Helps get out not only the game story. After every game, we do today's 3 things, talking about who the MVP was, the turning point of the game, and what you'll be talking about. We do deep dives every single week, or every single weekday, usually 5 a week. And then we do a news roundup at the end of the week on Saturday. So, again, bravestoday.com, free or paid, helps us out a ton. I want to get to the upcoming MLB draft. I've got some thoughts about what Atlanta should do, and should they go out of their normal drafting patterns this year. I want to talk about the rain-delayed game from last night that they postponed to September, doubleheader in September. Not a thing you always want to sign up for, but it does also mean you miss Mackenzie Gore. We'll break that down. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about Spencer Strider, okay? We saw his start on Tuesday. The velocity was not where it's typically been, and it fell throughout the outing. And his results not be the same. But what is that connected? What fastball velocity does he need to have to be successful? And with a lower fastball velocity, what can he reasonably do with that? So let's dive into it. I pulled a bunch of numbers, did a bunch of Statcast searches and things like that, talked to folks to try to figure out what expectations should be for this version of Spencer Strider. We all kind of assume as he progresses and gets closer and closer to the end of the year, as he gets farther away from the surgery and farther away from the start of his season, he's going to get better. But right now, what should be a proper expectation for him? So the big thing here is the fastball velocity. Obviously, we talked about that. In 2023, when he was a Cy Young finalist, he averaged 97.2 miles an hour on the four-seam fastball. And that was the year he led baseball in wins, 20. He led baseball in winning percentage at 800. He was 20-5. Led baseball in strikeouts with 281, despite only throwing 186 and 2/3 innings. He finished with almost 100 more strikeouts and innings pitched. His strikeout rate of 13.5 per 9 led all of baseball. And then he did have some bad luck with his ERA. So he had a 3.86 overall ERA, but his expected ERA was 3.09, and his fielding independent pitching was a National League best 2.85. So his ERA was a full run higher than his FIP. He finished as the 4th place Cy Young winner, and I remember writing this story at the time for Sports Illustrated a couple weeks, right before the season ended, a couple weeks before they announced the Cy Young winner. And I pointed out that if he were to win Cy Young, he would have not only had the highest ERA of any Cy Young winner, but it would have been by a lot. So he wasn't going to win, but 4th place finisher, pretty nice. And the guy that we saw on Tuesday is arguably not that guy, right? His fastball averaged 95 miles an hour. We talked about this a lot yesterday. It was lower at different points of that game. He topped out a lot of he topped out just under 97.2 in the first inning. So he barely touched his average velocity from 23. And the thing is, Spencer Strider is well aware that he needs to have that fastball because it's so unique. It's so hard to hit. It's the thing that makes everything go. Talking to Eno Saris of The Athletic a few years ago, he said, quote, "There are very few right-handed starters that average over 98 with a low VAA," which is vertical approach angle. That is, in essence, where you release the ball in conjunction to the plate. If you have a high release point, the ball is going more downhill towards the plate. That's a steep VAA. If you have a lower release point, which Strider does, then it's almost flat, right? You never throw it up in the air to get to the plate because the mound's elevated. But you're releasing the ball a little bit lower. It's a pretty shallow vertical approach angle. It's a low vertical approach angle. Finishing up Strider's quote here, quote, "It's just harder to hit. The harder you throw, the less time you have to decide, so it's even harder to hit." Strider's saying, my mechanics, his extension is really good. His vertical approach angle is really low. He has a lot of backspin on the ball. All of that combined to make the fastball very good in and of itself. And then he throws it really hard. That makes it even better. And the extension matters as well. The extension is how close to the plate you release the ball. The closer you release the ball to the plate, the less distance it has to cover. And so what that does is it makes the fastball seem even faster than it actually is. So I went and pulled the numbers on perceived velocity. This is a search in Statcast you can do. It's a little hidden in some of the metrics, but it's a search you can do. And when Strider's fastball at 97 miles an hour, the perceived velocity is like 98.6 or 0.5. I don't remember the exact number, but it's somewhere between a mile and a half harder. It looks like it's even faster than it actually is. So all of that stuff combines to make that one of the best fastballs in baseball. And Strider acknowledges that, like, the goal of that fastball is to get swing and miss. Quote, "When I throw my fastball and slider, I expect a miss. That's what I want. That's my goal. That's what the pitches are designed to do." Again, he threw a lot slower on Tuesday. And slower fastballs from Strider, this is obvious. They're more hittable. Duh. We know that. But how much more hittable are they? So I pulled his entire career, every fastball he's thrown at 97 and up, and every fastball he's thrown at 95 and under. Okay? Strider's fastballs at 97 and harder have allowed a 207 batting average with a 29.5% whiff and a weighted on base average, WOBA, if you will, of 264. That's all really good. Fastballs at 95 and under for Strider. 364 batting average, 20% whiff rate, 441 weighted on base average. That is, he loses almost 160 points of batting average when his fastball's 2 mile an hour slower, like it is this year. So what that means is obviously inherently more hittable, and there's less margin for error there on locations, right? But it's not just the fastball in a vacuum. What you have to understand is the arsenal interaction here. And it's really hard to separate all of these things, but there is a change to the slider when the fastball is not as hard as well. The thing that I, with the publicly available data, am struggling to suss out is how much of the decay in the slider whiff rate is from the fastball not being as good, and how much of that is from the slider itself not being as hard. Okay? I did a bunch of searches, bunch of math and stuff here. When Strider averages 97 on his fastball, the slider's whiff rate is 55.3%. When he's averaging 95 or lower, the slider's whiff rate is 47.6%. Now, it is worth pointing out that is still very good over the average slider. And again, I'm having trouble figuring out how much is related to the fastball, how much is related to the slider velocity. I did go and look at all sliders from right-handers of 86 miles an hour or harder, which is where he averaged in 23. It was like 85.6. I'm rounding here. And 84 miles an hour and under, which is what he's averaging this year, 83.9. The whiff rate's about 5% different. They're both below where Strider is. He lost about 8%, 7 and change. The average MLB starter loses 5%, but he's also way above where they are. The average 86 mile an hour slider in baseball is a 34% whiff rate. Strider's, when he's at 86 on the slider and the fastball's full speed, it's 55%, right? You can give up a little bit of the slider to a little bit of whiff rate on the slider and still be well above MLB average. Again, this was one of the best sliders in baseball in 2023. Like, Strider's fastball and Strider's slider were two of the three best individual pitches in baseball in 2023. So you can give up a little bit on them, and he can still be really good. The question is, how good can he be? His Stuff Plus, which is trying to grade the overall arsenal interactions of everything that you throw into one number. 100 is league average. In 2023, his Stuff Plus was 126, when he was averaging 97 on the fastball, when he was averaging 86 on the slider. This year, averaging 95 on the fastball and averaging 84 on the slider, his Stuff Plus is exactly 100. So, on Tuesday, Spencer Strider's stuff was exactly league average over the course of the entire outing. And obviously, he was throwing harder in the first. It backed off a little bit later in the game, but he was hitting locations a little better and sequencing a little better. And I think the sequencing's key here, because if he's getting less whiffs, he's also throwing less strikes, right? His strike percentage is down about 4 to 5% this year. And the big place where it shows up is the first pitch. In 2023, he got first pitch strikes on 67% of his at-bats. This year, or I guess plate appearances technically, this year, 57.5%. So he's lost 10% of his first pitch strikes. Granted, incredibly small sample. We have 2 starts, but just an overall picture. Overall, the fastball's 2 mile an hour slower. The slider's 2 mile an hour slower. He's getting 10% less whiffs, more balls being thrown overall, and his Stuff Plus is exactly league average. I still think Spencer Strider can be successful. Okay? The trick here, and you saw a little bit of this on Tuesday, is he has to sequence better. We saw him throw plenty of changeups. We saw him throw plenty of curveballs. Not plenty, but more than he typically did last year when he unveiled the curveball. In that 2023 season, he was 90% fastball slider. On Tuesday versus the Nationals, he was 78%. He threw 13% changeups. He threw 9% curveballs. And I think for Spencer Strider to have an ERA of 4 until the velocity thing comes back, that's the guy he's going to have to be. He can't go 90% fastball slider if the fastball and slider come out to league average, come out to a 100 Stuff Plus. He has to be more varied. He has to throw changeups. He has to throw curveballs in sequence better. I'm not saying cut the fastball to 25% and throw all of these a quarter of the time, but he has to do more like the Washington approach. And you can see him change early, right? He was heavy fastball early, and he adjusted and started throwing more changeups and started throwing more curveballs, and he settled in. That's what he's going to have to keep doing this year if he wants to be closer to the dominant version of Spencer Strider versus a guy who appears that the stuff is technically average. I would still argue he's above average, but the stuff grades out, at least in that last start, as average. In just a second, let's talk about some of the ramifications of this change in schedule for the Braves. With that game last night being rained out, they've changed the rotation. So has Washington. We'll break that down next right here on Braves Today. The big thing for me about the schedule change is you miss out on Mackenzie Gore now. So both teams decided to go ahead and change their rotations, and they just pushed everybody a day. So AJ Smith-Shawver versus Trevor Williams is tonight, meaning Chris Sale should be bumped to Friday versus San Diego. And you'll have Sale, Grant Holmes, Spencer Schwellenbach, likely. Those are your three guys for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which means Strider's next start gets bumped to Tuesday on the road in Philly. Completely honest, I would rather have him have pitched on Sunday in Atlanta versus pitching on Tuesday in Philly, as he's still trying to come back, get the stuff back into form. I think I would have rather him not had the extracurricular junk of being on the road and in Citizens Bank Park. There's history between Strider and that team. Maybe that's just the Braves fan in me. Part of me, I'd rather him do it against San Diego than do it against Philly. Whatever. But the good news here is now Braves get Trevor Williams. And they saw Trevor Williams last week. That start was exactly a week ago. Atlanta won 5-2. They tagged Trevor Williams for 4 runs, 3 earned, on 5 hits in 4 1/3 innings. He didn't walk anybody. He struck out 4, but he took the loss. And it was only 77 pitches. They didn't take him out because he was, his pitch count was too high. They just took him out because it wasn't working. It just was not working for them. Brad Lord finished up the 5th inning. Brad Lord pitched the 6th. Andrew Chafin and Zach, I can't even say his name, Brzzyk, Brzykcy. If you know how to pronounce it, put it in the comments down below on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. I have no clue how to say that. And then Jorge Lopez allowed a run on 2 hits in the final inning in the 8th inning. Since they were at home, Atlanta did not have to pitch the bottom of the 9th. AJ Smith-Shawver, that was the start. 2 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts across 6 innings. He took the win. Atlanta went Pierce Johnson, Dylan Lee, Raisel Iglesias to shut it down. Dylan Lee did give up 3 hits in the 8th inning there. 3 hits, 1 run in the 8th inning, including a home run. I want to say that home run was C.J. Abrams. There was nobody on, but he gave up the C.J. Abrams home run. So either way, this is a winnable game and a pitcher that you had some success with last time. Now, what was working for Trevor Williams, and it's frustrating, the 4-seam fastball averaged 88.3 miles an hour from Trevor Williams. It touched 91.1. Atlanta still had 4 whiffs and 7 called strikes on it. He had a 37% CSW on the fastball. And again, he was throwing 88 miles an hour. The hardest one he threw was 91.1. I'm pretty sure I've seen Grant Holmes throw a changeup harder than that. That's almost the velocity when he's on and when he's healthy of Spencer Strider's. 88.3 is close to Strider's slider. And that was the fastball from Trevor Williams. So a little frustrating there, but it was 4-seam, then a lot of sweepers. He threw 29% sweeper, changeup, sinker, slider. Almost all of the sliders came against righties. A majority of the changeups came against lefties, which that's to be expected. Just a really interesting how that went. At the same time, AJ Smith-Shawver had a lot of success using the fastball to set up the splitter, right? He faced a lot of lefties. He threw 86 pitches in this one. 66 were to lefties. Only 20 were to righties. But he got 17 whiffs, 7 on the fastball, 8 on the splitter, a couple more on the curveball. He did not throw the cutter once. So for all of the conversation there was about him adding that cutter and how I've been telling people it's not a slider, it's a cutter. I've confirmed that with people that know AJ Smith-Shawver. have acknowledged, yes, that is a cutter, that is not a slider. He calls it a cutter, whatever. He didn't throw any of them last time. It was four seam, splitter, curveball. And again, because he's been much more reliable at landing the four seamer in the zone, guys have still been taking a lot of them. They took 11 called strikes on the four seamer. And so when that happens, he can then throw the splitter. He doesn't know where it's going every time, but they don't know where it's going. And early in the flight, it looks like the four-seamer, and the four-seamer's been landing in the zone. So they have to commit to it, and they have to swing at it, and they end up missing it, right? Again, 8 whiffs on 14 swings on the splitter. It was only in the zone 25% of the time. He threw 28 of them. 7 were in the zone. I'm telling you, this is almost purely a chase pitch. He got a grand total of 1 called strike on the splitter. But it works when the fastball is in the zone. And it's a great development. I love to see it from AJ Smith-Shawver. I love to see this is working for him. Side note on the splitter, Hurston Waldrop in Gwinnett yesterday. Another good start for him ever since he changed his mechanics to cut back on the leg kick and all of that, kind of calm down his arm action and everything. And he's not using the splitter a ton, right? He still has it. It's still filthy, but he's really working on the slider, curveball, breaking pitches, trying to get them better and get more comfortable with those. He's making a lot of progress. He'll obviously be able, he's always going to have that splitter. That pitch is filthy. He's been throwing it for years. It's really good. So I feel better now than I did a month ago about him being able to give you innings in the back half of the season if you need them. It looks like every start that we've seen since he made those mechanical changes, it's worked out. By the way, if you want to read more about that, I've got a newsletter from last week all about Hurston Waldrop. Go check it out again, bravetoday.com. We have a tab up on the top of the site for prospect writing, and it should be in there. So, again, that game, same time as always, 6:45. I'll have a postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta with Jake Mastriani of Locked On Braves, and then we'll talk about that tomorrow. In just a second, let's talk about the MLB draft this year, because I think this one is the one where the Braves need to go outside of type a little bit and do something different. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chinook Seedery. That's right, it's a second ad break ad read. You guys have heard me talk about them a ton. I'm a huge fan of Chinook Seedery and all of their sunflower seeds and what they do. They've got 8 flavors: original, lemon pepper, jalapeno ranch, smokehouse barbecue, hatch chili, dill pickle, cinnamon toast, and today's flavor that I'm using, Parmesan and pepper. That's my snack for the day. I grab a little trash cup and a bag of sunflower seeds every single morning when I come to my office to get to work. That's today's snack. Promo code BRAVES over at ChinookSeedery.com gets you a couple things. 1, 10% off your order, no matter what it is. Sampler pack, a variety pack of all the flavors, a case where you build your own. A case where you build your own, just the ones you like, merch, whatever it might be, get you 10% off. Also, if your order's $40 or more, it gets you free shipping. So, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. That's ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. Final couple minutes of Braves today, Lindsay Crosby. I want to talk about the MLB draft this summer, because the Braves farm system has never really been, or has not been highly regarded by the prospect apparatus in the last few seasons. But every year, it feels like you're able to get at least one guy out of that farm system to become a regular contributor to the team. 2022, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, Michael Harris. I'd argue Dylan Lee as well. You grabbed him from the Marlins. He spent some time in Gwinnett and came up and started being really effective at the major league level. 2023, Bryce Elder, right? He had debuted before that, but 2023 was really kind of the breakout year there. 2024, Spencer Schwellenbach, right? He started the year in the low minors. He ended in Atlanta. 2025, Obviously, so far, Drake Baldwin, AJ Smith-Shawver, this has been the season where Deisabel Hernandez got established in the majors. He's been up, he's pitched some in the majors, but they also put him back in Gwinnett. The Stripers used him as a closer and things like that, and now this season's when he's really cemented himself as a major league regular and is not in danger of being sent down. But a lot of the replacements the Braves have had to get out of the farm system, really with the exception of Michael Harris, have been to replace pitchers. You lost Charlie Morton, you lost Kyle Wright, you lost Max Fried, all those, like, you've had to bring up pitchers, whether it's the bullpen or the rotation. But coming up soon, you're going to have to start replacing position players. Okay, if you go and you look at the notable free agents in the next 4 off seasons, right? And I'm assuming on this list that every available club option was picked up, right? So 2025, after this season, you could lose Marcell Ozuna, your designated hitter, and closer Raisel Iglesias, okay? In 2026, you could lose starting pitcher Chris Sale. You could lose relievers Pierce Johnson and Iñigo de los Santos, and backup shortstop Orlando Arcia. In 2027, you could lose your starting second baseman and Ozzie Albies, 2 more relievers, and Aaron Bummer and Joe Jimenez, and left fielder Jurickson Profar. In 2028, you could lose Ronald Acuna Jr. His club options are up after that season. Eli White is also set to be a free agent. So is Dylan Lee. For what it's worth, so is Jared Kelenic. He might get non-tendered before then. We don't know. But point is, you're going to have to replace some of those players internally. We've seen how the Braves do things. They don't go out in free agency for the most part. Profar's kind of the exception. They don't go out and sign position players to multi-year deals in free agency. You're going to have to replace some of those guys from the inside. Now, some of the early absences, Marcell Ozuna, okay, you may have the ability to use a Drake Baldwin, Sean Murphy platoon, rotate some other guys through and replace your DH without having an everyday guy. I'd argue if you did not have an everyday DH now, Ronald Acuna Jr. could potentially be back in the majors already because you could DH him. But right now, you can't put Ozuna in the field, so you can't DH Ronald Acuna Jr. 2026, again, the only position player is really Orlando Arcia, and he's a backup. He's an injury policy only right now. He's not playing unless you substitute for Nick Allen for a pinch hit late, and then you put Arcia in for defense, or Allen or Ozzie Albies technically is out of commission. But in 27, Ozzie Albies. 28, Ronald Acuna Jr., Eli White. You've got some guys coming up. And the thing that I think this MLB draft class is good at means you need to change what you do. Atlanta's big, obviously they draft a lot of pitching, and I need to update the numbers. I had run this for all the way through last season, like the last draft, like the last 4 or 5 years. The Braves have been the only organization in baseball to give over 60% of the money in their draft pool to pitching. Almost every team took more pitchers than hitters. But a lot of those were cheaper senior sign guys, things like that. The only team that gave more than 60% of their draft pool money to pitching was the Braves. And then they go heavy in bats in international free agency. And typically the way that the Braves have approached that pitching is they target arms that kind of drop early. Last year it was Cam Caminiti, a prep guy, but oftentimes it's a college guy. And they get that guy at or below slot. They got Caminiti, a prep guy, at slot last year, which is rare. Usually prep players need to be given over slot bonuses to get them to skip going to college and sign with you. They got Caminiti at slot last year. But typically the Braves like to try to save a little bit of money with that first pick, and then they turn around and they get some guys later. AJ Smith-Shawver got an overslot bonus in the 5th round to skip his college commitment and sign right away. And this draft is a little bit different because the strengths of the class are different. Like the college hitting class, it's roughly average. The depth is good. I don't love the skill at the very top like I did last year. You had J.J. Weatherholt, Travis Bazana, Nick Kurtz last year. Amazing class last year. The hitters at the very top of this draft are not on the same caliber as last year. But there's a good depth in the college bats. The college pitching is very strong at that top end up there. Jamie Arnold of Florida State, Liam Doyle from Tennessee, Riley Quick from Alabama, Kay Anderson from LSU. There's a ton of really good pitchers early in the draft. And again, that's the demographic Atlanta likes. So, you're picking in the 20s, but there's a lot of things to like there. But the prep talent is also really interesting this year. Prep pitching is the weakness of the class, and that's fine. Atlanta, they had that one draft where they took a couple prep guys early, like in the first round, and then they took Caminiti early last year. But for the most part, the Braves don't get super heavy into prep arms in the first round. But prep hitting, and that's a group that Atlanta almost never touches early. The prep hitters, I feel like that's the strength this year. There's a lot of quality, especially at the top, and a lot of quantity, especially at shortstop. And so I feel like, given the fact that you're looking at this 28 window to have to go out and replace position players on your roster, this is the year to maybe go a little bit different of your approach and look at hitters early. College hitters, prep hitters. Again, the college hitting class is average. There's some guys I like in there, especially, and part of this is I've covered him in person. But Ike Irish, the outfielder and catcher from Auburn, he hit 398 in the SEC. 398 with a 480 on base and an 852 slug in the SEC. Absurd. 13 of his 16 home runs came in SEC play. A lot of those came on the road. Just, he can play corner outfield for you. Huge arm. He can catch for you if you need him to. There's a lot of college options. Merrick Houston of Wake Forest, shortstop, is a great, probably the best defender in the draft out of the college ranks, but his power might cap at 10 to 12 homers. Weewo Lloyd, the shortstop out of Arkansas, was just named SEC Player of the Year. Defensively, he's fine. The range isn't great, but he could be a 15 to 20 homer bat the next level. But it's like he's an offensive first shortstop, not a defensive first shortstop. But out of the prep options, there's a lot of really good prep shortstops. Daniel Pierce out of Mill Creek, Georgia. He's a UGA commit, but he's got really good power projectability. His defense is good. He can stay on the dirt. He can probably be above average at shortstop or plus at second or third. Steele Hall, the shortstop out of Hewitt-Trussville, Alabama. He's a Tennessee commit. He's super young. He's supposed to be a 26 guy. He reclassified 25. The defense is awesome. He started to put on some good weight. He already gets a lot of his lower half incorporated to the swing already. There's a lot to like here. And I feel like this is probably the year where Atlanta should do a lot of work early on position players and bats, and ideally a shortstop, right? Again, Irish is not a shortstop. I know that. I just think he's a special offensive talent. But I think a lot of work on a shortstop early would be great. The Braves haven't really taken a lot of early shortstops. Part of the reasons they haven't worked out for him, Braden Shoemake was an early shortstop pick, Texas Tech, I think. They took Luke Waddell out of Georgia Tech. They haven't really gone a lot to get shortstops out of college early. But I think if there's a year to either to go for a prep position player in the first round, this might be it. Again, I like Pierce, Daniel Pierce out of Mill Creek, Georgia, Steele Hall, Hewitt-Trussville, Alabama. Those are my two picks out of the prep shortstops, but there's a lot in there. I wrote this whole thing up with more details and scouting reports and all that, again, over at bravestoday.com. That was the Wednesday newsletter, so go check it out if you want more of that there. If you're listening on audio, do us a favor, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live to drop the next episode. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.